Of the 2.7 billion people who currently use Facebook, how many among those people decided to have a say in what the community standards were to be? I'm willing to bet that maybe 0.1% of the total user base. 0.1% gets to decide what is acceptable speech and what it isn't acceptable speech. Facebook started off as a revolutionary platform connecting people all over the world to spread allegories relative to their struggles and to spread ideas relative to creating solutions for those struggles. Today, Facebook is not the same platform that brought it to prominence, global prominence, I should say. Facebook is the online platform of the petty bourgeois with terms of social acceptability, with standards and practices dictated at the whim of the financial shareholders and Mark Zuckerberg. Today, I was thrown into Facebook jail for a term of 7 days for honoring the memory of a departed anarchist comrade while providing words of encouragement to another depressed comrade, stating, "We should burn this mofo down before this mofo burns us down." It's what Kitty would have wanted. According to Facebook's standards and practices, this was deemed as inappropriate speech and worth censoring me over for 7 days. Truth be told, I have seen far worse things posted on Facebook without as much as a single warning. But when I post words of encouragement honoring the memory of a fallen anarchist and Occupy comrade, hold the phone and stop the press. The 1% dictates anti-neoliberal dissent. Comrade Pella has committed yet another thought crime against the 1%. He must be silenced. This has happened to me many times throughout the year, and has happened to many people, both left and right, many times throughout the year as well. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg and is a symptom of a much larger problem looming over all of our heads right now. Over the past year, especially in the era of COVID-19, big tech has made massive power grabs both online and in real life. Isn't it ironic that I'm posting an anti-big tech rant on big tech? With COVID mitigation measures, they have made an attempt to monopolize day-to-day transactions through e-commerce, while small real-life businesses have been closed down, in which foreclosed properties have mostly been acquired by the wealthy conglomerate companies like Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, for pennies on the dollar. They have acquired enormous amounts of data through Zoom meetings and Facebook posts, since you neurotic people don't want to go outside anymore because you're afraid of those who may be or may not be vaccinated and who may or may not wear masks, and they sell this to advertisers. They, along with the mainstream media, have driven the narrative of COVID-19, and now they are attempting to push for vaccination passports, so now they have access to your private medical status and data. They have also deplatformed alternative tech, Gab and Parler, for their politically incorrect and illiberal viewpoints. They are behind the so-called cancel culture to gentrify mainstream culture and brush away all the offensive elements to appeal to a younger and more diverse user base who they view as consumers. No, BreadTube, it's not you, it's big tech. You are just their useful idiots, using racecraft and woke speak as a means to further advance corporate agenda into day-to-day living situations. Now, there's nothing woke, or I should say, there's nothing radical or countercultural about you anymore. Get with the program. They are deliberately fueling and encouraging racial and sexual division within our republic, with both people, left and right, socially isolated due to COVID, buying into negative reinforcement as a means to collect and sell more data and increase ad revenue. They determine what is acceptable speech and not acceptable speech. They have weaponized social justice and liberalism to advance their own cutthroat capitalist ends. The petty bourgeois liberals, who are supposed to be anti-establishment, and remember Woodstock, folks? No, you were probably too high to remember. They bought into all of this, hook, line, and sinker, like the mindless lemmings they are, because Donald Trump and his mind-bogglingly dim-witted supporters trigger them, and they want the internet and society to be a safe space for them, even if that means surrendering their personal sovereignty and their national sovereignty over to big tech to keep them safe. Meanwhile, the conservatives, guided by dumbass Jeffersonian and limited government rhetoric, blame all of this on socialism. They are both imbeciles. Let's talk about how community standards work. If Mark Zuckerberg gave a damn about upholding community standards, he would pack up all of his crap and surrender his mostly unused 1,300 acres worth of private property on the north shore of Kauai back to the community. Since the community of Kauai has been very vocal about not wanting his interests there, nor do they want him pushing Aboriginal Kanakas out of their homes by way of his INA acquisitions in his not so obvious attempt, to monopolize all 51,000 acres of the entire island of Kauai. The supposedly progressive and liberal state government of Hawaii, which really shouldn't be there to begin with, has once again sold Kanakas out by letting a technocratic 1% oligarch thug like Mark Zuckerberg mimic Larry Ellison, who literally bought the entire island of Lanai right from underneath the feet of the dispossessed. But the voices of the afflicted are suppressed. Nobody hears them. The mainstream media doesn't broadcast the struggle. No, instead, the mainstream media will highlight the environmental preservation efforts of Zuckerberg and Ellison, while more and more Kanakas are rendered homeless and driven out of their homelands. But look how progressive and environmentally sensitive Zuck and Larry are. They care so much. If I were Kanaka Mali, and I am not, but if I were, I would summon the ghost of the 1940s Hawaiian labor movement, which brought the Big Five to their knees, and combine that with the militancy of the 2018 France-based Yellow Vest movement, and make my presence known in every center of tourism and vacation resort. People are homeless and starving out on the Aina, and you gotta break eggs if you want to eat. The class war is real, and the class war is now. Community standards defined within the terms of what is socially acceptable according to wealthy, both online and in real life, wealthy people, are not decisions made by any community. They are decisions made for the community by the 1%. If the peasantry is to get along harmoniously within the never-ending parameters of the 1%'s soft power dictatorship. Without a powerful regulatory state that works for and fights for the proletariat and stands up to private multinational big tech corporations and says, no, you are not going to censor the proletariat, nor are you going to gentrify them out of their homes. For if you attempt to do so, the state will seize everything that you own with the force of the state, break your companies in half, and redistribute your inflated assets to our poorest citizenry. The illegal imperialist state government within Hawaii, which doesn't serve the United States, but private multinational Anglo-Japanese corporate interests using the U.S. military as their dumb muscle, does not do that. Nor does the state of California, nor the state of New York, nor the state of Oregon, nor the state of Washington. I almost said the state of Portland. Well, it's the city of Portland. They have let big tech walk in with a free pass and do whatever the hell they want at the expense of the citizenry, who are pushed out of their homes, left to live and suffer on the streets, while overpriced boutiques with socially progressive values move on in. Or, they're forced to, or the people were forced to relocate where big tech does not have its influence as of yet. And now with Silicon Valley sweetheart Kamala Harris, one heartbeat away from the presidency, and a multitude of corrupt, bought-off politicians in both parties sitting in both chambers of Congress, Silicon Valley, a conglomerate of multinational corporate tech companies, are attempting to perform a bloodless coup on the federal government of the Republic of the United States. Now, I know what you liberals are thinking, watching this are thinking, oh great, another QAnon conspiracy theorist, a Russian troll. To them I say, shut up. Shut up. Dialectical materialism, analyzing relationships between property, capital, the modes and means of productive forces correlated with private ownership, is not some goddamn internet conspiracy theory. It's rooted in a socioeconomic science called Marxism. Maybe you should trust the science a little more and stop watching so much goddamn Rachel Maddow to reinforce your false perceptions about the state of society. Which takes me to my next point. There are right-wing agents of disinformation out there like Tucker Carlson on the mainstream level and Styx Hexenhammer in the YouTube circuit. These agents of disinformation hijack our critical analysis of big tech's interactive and real-life power grabs. They put a perverted distortion on Marxian dialectical materialism and in a roundabout way blame socialism for society's big tech conundrum. As a byproduct of 5 decades worth of anti-communist propaganda and rhetoric, the alienated masses who subscribe to these agents of disinformation believe them and believe that free market capitalism is going to solve a problem that free market capitalism created. I know what you're thinking. That's not free market capitalism. That's socialist corporatism, man. You people are so misguided that you come off as stupid. But you aren't stupid because you know there is a problem. You just won't let your anti-status dogmas die. I hate to break it to you, but with or without government regulation, there is no such thing as free market capitalism. The only motives of the capitalist are growth and accumulation. The more they grow, the more means and modes of production they accumulate. The more they accumulate, the more power that they acquire as a corporation, and to such an extent where the corporation will bribe politicians to create laws and regulations that restrict their competition from growing, while the corporation grows larger and larger without competition. And here you self-proclaimed smartasses come out with your Rothbardian and Ayn Rand garbage and say, remove the regulations. Okay, so then you know what happens? The corporation either buys your little shit business and creates a monopoly non-violently. It's all about non-violent principles, right? Or creates their monopoly with underhanded tactics via use of force, with the government looking the other way, and shuts you down anyway. Socialism did not create big tech, and just because big tech is woke doesn't mean they are socialist. Capitalism did. The free market did. You misguided imbeciles. When half of you cretins were saying a few years ago that net neutrality was big government and should be overturned, guess what happened? Big tech got bigger. Your voice got marginalized, and now you're saying that socialism empowered big tech. No, you did. And you refuse to admit the error of your ways because to you, capitalism can do no wrong, even though you are convinced that neoliberalism is supposedly socialist. How dumb can you people really be? In closing, big tech is a real big problem now. It is fueling social isolation and division and undermining our republic. It is censoring our speech to not say anything inflammatory to hurt the feelings of the 1%, which have adopted woke culture to shield themselves from advancing their capitalist ends. Shield themselves from scrutiny while they advance their capitalist ends, while they wage an oppressive class war on the economically and historically marginalized who can't afford to live in their homes anymore as big tech personalities and corporations gobble up more and more and more real estate, while feigning the aesthetic of support for the poor and historically marginalized, who they are dispossessing. Makes me so angry thinking about this. The rotten system of neoliberalism most certainly does need to be scorched. Sorry, community standards people, that's the truth. All peoples need to put their petty differences aside and rise up against the 1%. Liberals need to shut up, stop watching Rachel Maddow, and think for themselves for once. And agents of disinformation like Styx Hexenhammer need to be called out so they stop justifying the system that created the problem of big tech and 1% dictatorship in the first place. We need a government of action to fight for working families, and we need a government of action that has the spine to stand up to big tech. This is Comrade Pella, signing off.